building this thing, building at this pace, building at this in this new world where you don't know if it's possible. Like, we spent a lot of time on our first version of our platform, which is called Hooks. No idea if this little weird idea in my head was going to be possible. And like, that's fun. Like, that is the most fun. That makes all of the other parts of that I would prefer not to be a number one, right? Payroll, people management, insurance, the list could go on. All of that worth it, because I can't not play in this world of not being sure of what's possible and trying to build it. And that is, I guess, what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Question mark.
No, it's beautiful. Welcome to the Inside the Round podcast, where you get to learn about raising capitals from founders who have just done it. I'm Helena Fogarty. I'm a fundraising expert who works with startups on their seed and Series A rounds. Today, I'm speaking with Stefanie Francis of Hootology. If you don't know what people want, you can't give it to them. And yet, market research has been hamstrung by the same defining catch-22 for decades. Dig deep with a few people, and you'll get the why, but won't know whether it holds true for the majority of people. Ask hundreds of people the same checkbox questions, and you'll confirm your own bias and get hard numbers, but not the reasons behind them. Hootology exists to give agencies, strategists, large brands, and anyone who really needs to understand an audience in detail and at scale the answers and the confidence to make better decisions, campaigns, products, and policies. Pretty cool. In short, Hootology removes uncertainty and doubt, and they do so using their proprietary methodology, real people, and the power of AI to turn interactive conversations into actionable insights. Surveys and focus groups may not be keeping up in today's modern age. The quantification of qualitative information is here, and Hootology has unlocked a new way to understand the irrationality of the human mind for large-scale decisions. Hootology has recently raised $1.1 million. So let's find out how they did it. Excellent to have you here today.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So just, to give the audience a little bit of background, we've known each other like surface level for maybe 2 years.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We met when you were thinking about raising.
Yes.
And here you've done it.
Yeah.
Super exciting.
One and done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to give you a high five. But that might be cringe. So I'd like to start with you giving us a little bit of your origin story. You get to be a villain or a hero in this one. So let me know where you want to start.
It's always both for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
We started Hootology in 2016, and I like that you ended that on the understanding the irrationality of the human mind, because that really is something that we all have to remember, is that we only have limited information, and we're making assumptions and decisions as we go with faulty information, right? We don't know why we're here. If we try and go at the big macro level, we don't know why we're all here. We don't know what the goals are, but we're just doing our best to learn. And so with Hootology, it's really was designed around really understanding the psychology of human behavior. And why that's important to me personally is I was a college athlete. I played volleyball at a Division I university, and I was an art major. And it was the first time where I understood that I didn't fit really anywhere, right? The art students were like, wait, you sweat like on purpose? And, my athlete friends were like, you just draw all day. And then as my career evolved in terms of ending up working in social services and understanding the psychology of really, in that case, kids who were growing up in very, very abusive environments, and understanding the dynamics at play and how that all impacts, us as humans in terms of our sense of self and growing and maturing and kind of owning our own story. The beauty is like learning that psychology, right? That piece that is still true and helpful for us today. And ended up going to business school and had that quant itch, the analytical itch scratched. And Hootology really is about bringing all of those things: creativity, constantly questioning why we're going about understanding people in a certain way, wondering what's possible, and then relying on those traditional ways that we've always used to be able to build and then think about how we would do it differently for today. So have a fantastic team, and we've created something kind of accidentally that's pretty exciting.
Where did you go to business school?
I went to Arizona State.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Arizona.
Amazing.
I know. I feel like one of the greatest compliments I get is when someone, "Hey, you're in New York," is like, that doesn't seem right." And I'm like, "Thank you. Thank you. I accept that."
I think let me just qualify. I have a very high opinion of people from Arizona.
Okay.
So very close people in my life from Arizona.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I may, that broadened my, I don't know what the typical idea of Arizonans are.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the was
Yeah.
born in the early 70s,
Yeah.
and it's a very different place now.
Yeah.
And there's lovely people everywhere. Let's start there. And there are a lot of lovely people in Arizona.
Yeah.
Just New York feels like I didn't understand it was supposed to be my home. So
Yeah, I get that.
it took me 42 years to figure that out by accident, and here I am, and it's got its gritty little teeth in me, and I can't imagine living anywhere else.
Yeah. And I think New York, also has so many different options
Yeah.
that you're able to dial in exactly what you want to create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would have eaten me up and spit me out in my 20s or 30s. Like, I just was so unaware of who I was, and my own insecurities, and it would have felt like I had to do a lot of the things that make someone cool. And I've never been cool. And so I feel like when I moved here in my early 40s, it was like, oh, like everything you could want, like no matter how nerdy and obscure or irrational it is here to be had. So
Yeah, you can find
been
your
great.
people.
Totally.
Yeah, that's very cool. You said something in your opener, your origin story about not feeling like you fit in, and I identify very much with that
Okay.
because of the athlete, because of the artist, because of being multidimensional.
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer that, but I just wonder, are there people who feel like they fit in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it wasn't me,
Yeah.
and it doesn't sound like it was you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know,
Yeah.
right? Because we can't. I feel like the beauty of being a researcher is like I come into everything saying, we don't know,
Yeah.
and what bias are we bringing into any assumption? I do think other people feel more comfortable than in their skin
Yeah.
than I have historically felt. I feel like through enough conversations
Yeah.
and enough digging, I think that's the case. And I think that's rapidly changing for me. I feel like it's the moment that I really kind of gave up, like out of exhaustion of trying to fit in, was ironically when everything sort of came together in a way I didn't expect. It was
Yeah.
like literally saying, I can't do this anymore. And suddenly I feel like my thinking started to change, my just like, what can I do that feels good? And whether that's what I wear or whether that's how I talk or what I choose to talk about.
Yeah.
It was when, ironically, all of the right people started to come to me, which is like, it's like mind blowing. For feeling not apart for so long, it's pretty cool.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing feeling, I think.
Yeah. I've also become a crier of late in my life, and I feel like it's been like a 50-year journey, and so I'm leaning into it, and I'm
Well,
okay with it.
my eyes are tearing up right now just because of allergies, so you're in good company.
Okay.
All right, we're good. So, did you always know that you'd start a company?
No, no way could I have ever imagined that. And in fact, when I co-founded my first company, I was in many ways like well positioned to be like the number two, if you will. I understand that oftentimes there isn't something that's clear that is as there is often not something that as clear cut as that. But I feel like my personality would want to be more of the doer, the person a little bit behind the scenes and still certainly part of the in the room with the decisions. But as things started to shift and needed to make some changes, and then I was just this drive to modernize how information is gathered kind of became more and more pressing. It was a moment where I sort of was like looking around for who that quote unquote number one could be, like who I could join. And I think unfortunately a lot of folks who are driven to start their own company have a different wiring, and it's not necessarily a bad wiring, but it's one that is fueled a little bit by needing to be the person in front. And that's just not me. And so it was, well, I better I better become it, and I'm going to be it temporarily. And I feel like I've been it temporarily since 2016, and there will be a day where I either hire my replacement,
Yeah.
or build myself into the place where I'm more perfectly positioned to grow this thing that we built, which is my passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting with that.
Yeah.
I'm full of questions, like coachy questions, like,
Yeah,
is there
bring
a
it.
world where you can be number one
Mhm.
and still be in alignment with you?
Yeah, the therapist and I are working on that actively. It's this moment in time. And I think the cool part is, uh, without kind of going into depths of psychology and my own personal irrational mind, it's getting comfortable understanding in the moment of time that we as Hootology have created, and the collective that we have, and that I actually am perfectly positioned because I am not that typical person who um, who starts a company. And that's, I have a lot of founder friends, and I think we're all kind of the same. So maybe we're a larger group than gets a lot of the exposure,
Mhm.
which is okay because that's what we want. But I now know for what we're trying to do and what I am now responsible for my team, I have to play that role. And I have to find a way to be okay with that. And I think that goes into a lot of stuff where your world crosses over in terms of what it takes to raise money
Mhm.
and the skills it takes to be that sort of that front-facing person who is the founder, who can more easily I want to say play the game in the ecosystem of the investment world. And play the game doesn't sound exactly right. Like there must be something else that maybe we can find together that speaks to what it is, because game feels competitive. And then part of what I would love to continue to see as we hopefully go for a second round at some point is, how can this be more of a collaborative partnership where truth, honesty, dare I say love, or compassion, maybe a better word, is part of the process? Because we've all spent a lot of time in our lives with folks who um, weren't great people. And I'm at a moment right now of, here we go, I'm a crier now, right? Of not one more second. Like, I can't spend one more second with people who don't deserve the collective whole of what we have built.
Yeah.
And what I understand is possible in life. And so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
How do we do that? I think you're the one to change it. Can you change that for all of us?
Let's work on it.
Okay.
I don't know if I can take on the full responsibility, but I'm working on it.
You're well positioned.
Yeah, I had a great conversation with Jeff Becker of Antler recently.
Okay.
And he was diving into a problem that he sees founders, or an error that founders make over and over again. And it was regarding who they work with and who they surround themselves with.
Mm.
And, I think that you just cut right to the core of that.
Okay.
Like, you've got to make sure that these people that you are working with, or who you're working for, or that you're providing service, are people that you're aligned with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
this is gonna get a little existential, but like, we only have, as far as we know, one trip here. There may be bonus time. No one's really going to be sure until we're there. But this is all we have, and so why would we not make every moment as magical as possible? And I'm not big on mantras or whatnot, but there was one day I was thinking about it, and I kind of kept saying nothing matters, right? Like in my life, I'd be like, nothing matters. None of this matters. We are floating.
Yeah.
In the middle of what we don't quite know, right? And not attached to anything.
Yeah.
In the middle of and connected here by an invisible force.
Yeah.
Like, do we not think about how amazing this is?
Yeah.
Insane. And so all we know is we get one shot. And so in the end, it's all so big and so small, and none of this matters, right? Like,
Yeah.
my small frustration of all of our daily lives living here are so, it doesn't matter. And then I was like, that doesn't feel totally true for me, right? Because it seems so callous. It seems so, oh, I don't care about this, and this doesn't matter. And so the second line became, so everything might as well.
Yeah.
And so it's like, because none of this matters, right?
Yeah.
This doesn't matter. We might as well make this the best conversation we have all week.
But to me, this matters.
Yeah. Well, right.
So-
It's a circle. Like
Yeah.
it's an infinite loop circle of like, but I'm saying the same thing. Like we
Yeah.
might as well make this matter so much because, anyways.
Yeah.
This is
No, we're going deep, but it's, I love that you brought that around because I certainly spent parts of my life in this nihilistic, nothing matters, so let's just fucking do it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a curse, I guess. But
That's your podcast.
and my life has changed for the good and the who knows because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the beauty in the attention to detail, whether it be in a relationship or in a conversation or an interaction on the subway, like that might as well matter so much.
Mhm.
So it's all of it. It's both sides of that.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I like the meaning, bringing the meaning back into it.
Yeah. And so the bringing it back to what we're talking about today, though, is the not one more second. Like, because this matters so much and because it doesn't matter at all, we might as well continue to make decisions in all of our business interactions, in all of our personal interactions, in all of our, there's no difference for founders, but in all of our interactions to be like surrounded by things that feel good. And that's not as kumbaya as it sounds, which is why I hesitated, because I want that to be true for everybody. So for the people who want that more aggressive, bottom line driven only, right? And it's unicorn or bust.
Yeah.
Good. That works for you.
Yeah.
Like I'm not judging or saying that you should be different, but I believe the larger group of humanity that falls into this ecosystem of the investment world might want something different if that opportunity was more allowed and if the conversations were different, right? I remember talking to, as I started this journey, I had the luxury of sort of, before we needed to raise, to be able to start to just fall into the rooms that the conversations were being had, which is where we started to see each other again. And I remember there was a dynamic where I was on a call with a VC, and I had this light bulb go off, and with realizing that he and some others, right? Hashtag not all VCs.
It's a new hashtag, I think.
But it's true because I know that there's amazing, like there's amazing humans everywhere. That this particular person thought that the risk that he was taking with his check was infinitely greater than the risk that, in this case, I was taking, or all of the other founders, right? I'm not special. All of the other founders that he would cross paths with, that it was a much bigger risk. And for some reason, it hadn't occurred to me that was the mindset. Like, I understand that if someone's writing a check, whether it's $1 million check or whether $100 million check or whatever it might be, that is a risk. And money does matter. As much as I fought that for a very long time, I understand it's the currency of our world. And it's not going to change in my lifetime. Maybe it will eventually, but it's not. But the acknowledgement that the risk that the founders are taking with likely all of their personal resources, financial resources, the sacrifices on a daily basis around the time, the not being present for certain things, the not being able to be sometimes the best partner that you want to be, the fear that is going on, and then the trust that other people are putting in you for their livelihoods, and then their children and their children's healthcare, and then your reputation as an industry professional, right? Like there couldn't be more of a everything of your being.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not disrespecting the importance of the risk of a check, but again, back to that, like hoping that there can be a partnership, right? And thinking about how this model could be a little bit different. And I know it exists for certain folks, and I certainly got lucky and have that for our pre-seed round. But what if it was more integrated into the way things get done? I think that the output and the outcome and the returns, ironically, would be significantly higher.
Yeah. And you didn't mention health. that also likes to be the founder.
I mean, what?
Mental, emotional, financial, and physical. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, a friend of mine was starting a company and she's like, what do I need to know? And I was like, look, get your relationship. She'd been married for a while. I was like, get your relationship as stable as it can be,
Yeah.
and get your mental and physical health as ready, and outsource everything in your life to your family and to whoever, so you can, for the most part, just focus on this and accept help, and help in like in love and support and whatever it might be, as you know, a lot of us type A's aren't always so inclined to do, allowing her to really focus on this for a good chunk of time. And she's crushing it. So not because of that advice, but she happens to be crushing it.
No, but it's great advice. It's really good advice that we should all take. And I think the other thing about founders that I know I did, because I was like, oh, it's only going to be for the first year that it's going to be this crazy, or it's only going to be this week, or it's only going to be,
No.
and it's not. It's just you're signing up for a life that is incredibly stimulating.
Yeah.
So exciting. You're firing on all cylinders
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
But it does have ramifications on the rest of your life.
Yeah. And it looks, I think, to the outside eye, it looks comfy, right? It looks like, oh, cool. We're not beholden to anybody.
Yeah.
That which
Renegades.
It looks like the joy of freedom of not being tied to somebody else's whim, whatever that might be, whether it be time, control of your time, or control of whatever it might be. And it's the internal thinking, even if you're not actually sitting at a computer and working, like the internal process that's happening is so on overdrive. And it's hard to communicate, because I think most of us wouldn't choose it otherwise. And I remember I had the realization where I feel like I have never worked harder, but feel like I don't work at all. And it's like, it's both. Like it's so on overdrive that it does permeate everything. When I used to teach at NYU, I taught a graduate course, and my students would always ask. I think I one semester taught an entrepreneurship class as well, and I'd always whittle it down to two things. I was like, don't do it unless these two things are true. Right?
I thought you were going to stop there.
Yeah, I mean, that I do pause and see. They're like, okay, cool. But it's held up even with like my friends who are in corporate jobs. And I'm like, here are the two things. Number one, Monday morning is your absolute favorite moment of the week.
Yeah.
And I understand how if you're working a corporate job, that can't be, that may not be true yet, but you could imagine that Monday morning is your favorite moment of the week. And like truly, because it's like, it's whatever you did on the weekend to get caught up and to get a little bit ahead, if ahead is a thing. It's when the lights come on and the bell rings again, and then you get to go, right? And that has to be a part of the drive. And the other is you can't not.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not very good at grammar, and I know that that's grammatically incorrect, but the gist of it is true, is like, I don't have any other options. And of course, we all have options. We could go get, maybe, I don't know if I could. I used to say, I could go get a corporate job. And I'm like, I don't know if I could anymore. But there are other options, right? Yeah. But in your mind, you just can't. Like the alternative has become so unacceptable that whether it be the barriers to decisions, the slow pace to decisions, the hoops for decisions, like whatever it is like this, building this thing, building at this pace, building at this, in this new world where you don't know if it's possible. Like we spent a lot of time on our first version of our platform, which is called Hooks. No idea if this little weird idea in my head was going to be possible. Yeah. And like, that's fun. Like that is the most fun. That makes all of the other parts of that I would prefer not to be a number one, right? Payroll, people management, insurance, like the list could go on. All of that worth it, because I can't not play in this world of not being sure of what's possible and trying to build it. And that is, I guess, what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Question mark.
No, it's beautiful. I love it. Well, I mean, you can't not. Like that's beautiful. And I also love don't do it.
Don't do it.
Dot.
Don't. I mean, do it. Please follow your dreams always.
So for this round,
Hi. Yeah.
we spoke a little bit. Like we spoke
Mm-hmm.
because we met at, you know, I don't know, a membership group,
Yeah, I think
the
so.
chief,
Yeah.
and we spoke. You were thinking about raising money.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about how you went about it, because I know you mentioned you didn't feel like you had a process, but it sounds like
Mhm.
you have your own way of going about these things.
Yeah, yes. I remember I asked a lot of questions of people who were a lot farther along than me or had done it. So I sat down with someone I knew who had raised $100 million very publicly, and I was like, what do I need to know?
A little bit.
I
A
know.
little bit of money.
I know nothing. And the only thing I remember from that conversation, because it was so far above my head from a language standpoint that I hadn't yet learned, is she said, here's the deal, you have to run a process. And I was like, what's a process? And I understand what the word process means, but I didn't quite understand and maybe still don't understand. So maybe it could help me clarify as I go into my second round. And she also said 80% of your time has to be dedicated to this process. And I knew I didn't like that math. If because I'm not a traditional number one, and I more just I'm great at building the unknown. That is just dreamy. Spending 80% of my time in this ecosystem that I was starting to understand how it worked didn't feel right. And the benefit of being an older founder is that I have enough life experiences of being able to say, this doesn't feel good. I need to be me. And I, even though it's every time the void is so hard and so scary, I'm a crier now. A path emerges. And so I think where that came to be is, I went to one of these beautiful community groups that get put together, and I was listening to a panel of a bunch of folks who had raised angel rounds, and it became kind of this like beat that everybody was hitting, which was that you have to have 300 conversations to get one check. And I remember kind of sitting off to the side and being like, y'all are saying that like that makes sense. Like the accepted norm of that statement was another moment where I was like, oh, I am not well positioned to do this, but that might be a good thing. I don't think I was thinking that at the time, because I start with, oh, I don't understand, and I'm behind. And even back to that moment of kind of giving up and being like, I can't do this, right? This pivotal moment in my life, it was probably 6 or 7 years ago, where I just was so exhausted from 46 years of trying to fit in spaces that I never fit in. Yeah. And suddenly the giving up was what everything changed. And so I think I had the same parallel experience with this, where I was in these rooms and in these conversations and listening and being like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so I in essence gave up. So I think that 300 conversations thing that everybody was saying and referencing, and in my mind, I was like, I also have a little bit of a twisted sense of humor. And I was like, isn't this interesting? Like, if we take the premise that all types of investing, angel, family offices, private equity, VC, all of it is maybe, if we boil it down, it's to help make inefficient systems more efficient. Right? I mean, if we really kind of go down to like boil it down to like a reduction sauce. I'm not a cook, but I heard someone say that once, and I was like, oh, okay. So like if we reduce it all down, it's what we're trying to do in every industry, right? We're trying to make things more efficient, more profitable, all make a lot of money. Great, good goal. I agree with that. But we're doing it with the most inefficient process possible. Like,
Yeah.
isn't that funny? And what's driving that? Like, is it ego on either side? Is it just doing what's always been done up until this point because that's what we've always been done? And if that's what, as founders, the one of the few skills we have, which is challenging how things get done. I mean, we're in this position as Hootology because we're questioning if traditional ways made sense for today and if there could be a better way. And so how do we, again, I look to you to fix this and to evolve this. How do we make it more, I don't know, efficient?
Yeah. Well, I want to hear more about how you did it
Okay.
before I weigh in, because I know the 300 conversation.
Okay.
That I've never heard 300.
Okay, what have you heard?
Well, what I do work with my clients
Okay.
on is pulling together a list of 150 investors.
Okay.
I know I'm giving you agita.
Yeah.
But of that list,
Okay.
we find ways to do outreach
Love
to
it.
that list.
Okay.
We prioritize it. We, work to see who's in their network, how they can get warm intros to the top level. And then some of that is automated, right? And the automated part, we don't expect to get a big response, but it's just kind of blanketing.
Yeah.
Right. In 2022, you could get a good response from mass cold outreach. Not anymore. And what I see is more and more the secret weapon is relationships. And I think we'd find that got to use a term, that you kind of hacked the system through relationships without even knowing, without even being intentional or knowing how to do that.
Right.
Just being in alignment with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that makes me think about how, going back to that, the typical, and when I say typical, I'm thinking of the ones we all read about, right?
Yeah.
The Stanford sophomore dropout idea garage, possibly oftentimes maybe comes from a wealthy background, knows a lot of people. Yeah, no, which a lot of us aren't in that position, and for which is fine. But if that's our typical quote unquote model, which I know there's a lot of push to change, and I'm motivated to change it should I get on the other side of this, is we're also rewarding the extroverts, right? And I love me some extroverts. Some of my favorite people in the world are extroverts. I am not one of them. I am as extremely off the chart introvert as possible. That doesn't mean shy. That doesn't mean fearful. Very comfortable on the stage in deep conversation, but there's an exhaustion factor. And that also drives, again, a lot of the founders that I know got into this position because they were excellent at what they do, which is a different skill than being a salesperson, which is what the skills are needed to be able to run a process, have 150 conversations, have 300 conversations, attend all of the events to meet the folks who then are and then all of the social norms of interaction. And not to mention, folks who might be neurodivergent, right? I'm lucky enough that I passed. I was too old for it to be cool to get tested, so I've never been tested. However, I've known a couple people who test for their lives. Their job is a psychologist who tests, and they're like, I'm like, okay, fine, but what's it gonna help me now? So if we add both of those pieces in, and that make us really great at building, at questioning, at developing, it's a completely different skill set.
Yeah.
And so how do we fix that?
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate because I do have really good relationships. That's how this pre-seed round did end up happening. But it was a result of giving up and saying, I can't do this. So I wonder how many people we're keeping out that have amazing ideas, because I've been fortunate to find workarounds for those things because I'm a lot older, because I've had to do a lot of introspection and therapy and coaching and all of the things to survive. And we're keeping out so many people.
We are.
Okay. Can we fix that?
I'd like to.
Okay. I'll let you put you in charge of that.
I think
also.
right now that's, I don't want to say it's intentional, but it's not unintentional.
Can you say more about that?
Well, there's a system
Mm-hmm.
and we pattern match,
Mm-hmm.
right? VCs being a lot of VCs talk about pattern matching. That can mean a variety of things.
Yeah.
But often a shortcut is that Stanford dropout that in my work we like to call Chad, even though I have some people I love in my life named Chad,
Mm-hmm.
that, has that pedigree, has that background, has that the things that they're looking for that talk to you and say, you're a real founder,
Mm-hmm.
right? I faced this when I was raising money, right? There was one particular D2C founder who I'm interviewing soon. And, everyone's like, oh, we're looking for that type of founder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you didn't match that type of founder who happened to be male and white and went to Stanford, like they didn't believe you had the stuff.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting? Because like
Yeah.
what I now know at 52 that I did not know at 22 is, I mean, it's how, how are we not even factoring in for people who have decades more experience?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. It just seems like,
100%.
whoa.
Yeah.
Let's,
And that's
let's
part of
let
it,
some
right?
folks.
Any way that you are different
Mhm.
from this
Yeah.
pattern matching,
Yeah.
whether like one of my first interviews was with I think he's 30 maybe, and he went to other schools other than Stanford
Yeah.
and is an incredible founder. And um, he seemingly raised money easily, but he was told he didn't have the pedigree,
Mm-hmm.
right? Having gone to Cornell and maybe
Wow.
NYU.
I'm great. We're
Yeah.
best of us are fucked.
And being 30.
Yeah.
So I think that and listen, that was a dark moment when I said some of it's intentional.
Yeah.
I do think some of it's intentional. And then there's a lot of people who are just focused on their fiduciary duty of getting a return for their LPs.
Yeah.
And it's unintentional. And there's a lot of people
Right.
as well who are working actively to change this.
Yeah.
So I want to give props to those, the people that are actively working to change this, but also a lot of the emerging founders in this space who, so they're new VCs in their first or second or third fund. This is before their companies have started returning capital. They want to change this, but they also have to get that return to raise their next round to be able to make that change.
Yeah. And
Right?
I think I'm burdened with the belief that we can do both.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I spent the first decade of my career in nonprofit and social services, and then sold out and went to business school, which I mentioned. And I think there's beauty to be had from both sides. And I think that now I can say driving towards an end goal of financial return is fun and important because it's taken me a long time, but money does matter, and you can make a lot of change and impact a lot of people with it, and it can be the return for the people who that's why they're in it, and that's okay to be in it for that reason, and that's valued for that reason. But what if we could do it in a more partnership way, right? So where the investors are wearing the same jersey as us versus wearing possibly the coach or owner jersey of the team. And if we could, and I'm fortunate again with the folks who wrote us a check in our first round, have more of that.
Yeah.
We're both players in this. Yeah. And we're both invested in winning, which makes us have a harmonious relationship, right? I don't have to hide things I'm nervous about or unsure about. I can talk openly about that, and then they can help us as a collective because now they're part of the collective, right? All of our interests are aligned in this succeeding financially. Yeah. And so we get to go about it in that way versus which I have heard some folks have more of a contentious relationship with their investor. And that just seems like a bummer and a lose for both sides. Yeah. Because we're not going to get to the ultimate victory that both folks are looking for, whether it be just a financial return. Again, no shade. Used to have shade, don't have shade anymore. And we can the outcomes can be better. Yeah. All around.
Oh, I agree with you. And there are, I get to sit across this table with VCs and ask them these questions.
Yeah.
And some of the VCs do have that point of view,
Mhm.
which is wonderful. And maybe that's idealistic and they don't actually do that in reality. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But they do have that point of view that they're on the same team. And then there are those VCs that if you're not performing to where you should be, they become less accessible to you.
Yeah. Should become more accessible,
I
right?
know, it's terrible. And there are some VCs that when given the option that a founder has an acquisition offer
Mm.
that may not give them the return that they want, the VC wants, they're going to say no
Yeah.
because they either want it to go to the moon or they want it to go nowhere.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
100% rough. And there's definitely, definitely examples of that happening often,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's life ruining for the founder and the team,
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to get back to, we've gone so deep. I love this. But I want to get back to, you had been, you had had a career,
Yeah.
you had had a network,
Mhm.
you were a professor at NYU,
Adjunct, yeah.
adjunct, yeah. Always wondered how people did that. I love that. And you were frustrated by this idea of having tons of conversations.
Yeah.
So what'd you do?
Well, it ended up being the quintessential, I've heard this as a strategy, even though I was not doing it as a strategy, of if you are looking for money, ask for advice. And if you're looking for advice, ask for money. And by default, that is what ended up happening.
Yeah.
I started to, in my exhaustion and frustration, I think internal knowing that I'm not going to be able to do this in the traditional way,
Mm-hmm.
um, in a way that's going to be successful. What can do and what can I default to that I know well? And that's reaching out to the people that I greatly respect and have known for decades, in the professional setting, and ask them for advice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to do that truly out of the moments that we all have, which I think I love the people who talk about it. So I talk about it for the reason of the gift I receive when people talk about it. But the moments of where you're not sure you're going to be able to make it through a particular moment as a founder, and the weight that feels, and the frequency that happens to almost every founder along their journey, multiple times. And so I think I was in one of those moments of, hey, I didn't set out to create a tech product. I didn't set out to be a tech founder. Uh, by the fact that this thing worked in our self-funded test of like playing around, like let's see if we could do this. And by the fact of having a first client who bought it, and then therefore having the ability to advance round 2 with that money, then having a second client who bought it, and then be able to advance with round 3 to where we had an MVP, right, on our own. But still having this, gosh, if we're going to grow, I understand what we have. I understand the moment. I understand the opportunity, and I understand my responsibility to my team, and now the larger team, right, of our CTO and our developers and external folks that have joined in a supportive role. And so I started to go, gosh, I'm feeling more and more pressure. All I know to do is to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called a couple of my advisory board members, and a couple of just long-term mentors, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I see the end.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that honesty is the path through.
Mm-hmm.
And it never in the moment when I'm doing it feels like the path through. It feels like the flag of like, I just can't, I'm giving up again. And that's when all of the right things have always come. And so I had a mentor of 20 years who was like, why haven't you asked us? Like, and I was like, wait, what? Like, I would never ask you,
Yeah.
Her and her husband had built a very large company, very different industry, had recently sold, and it just never crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so through that, they wrote the beyond significant portion of our funding round check, and I was floored and humbled and honored and all of the things that are true. And then I went to other members of my advisory board and I'm like, you won't believe it. And they're like, well, I want to give you money. And I was like, what is happening? And then I have another advisory board member who was like, well, why haven't you asked me? I'm offended. And I'm like, wait, what is happening? And maybe that's the cycle or the thread through this that I even now I'm just realizing is there's something beautiful that happens in not playing giving up and in not playing whatever we're told you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And how can we look at ourselves and say, what would be the truest and best way for me to do this? Because I have to do this.
Yeah.
And what might come to all of us if we each tapped into that, whatever makes each person unique versus fitting the mold that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm lucky to have known those folks, right? And when I think about, I sort of sometimes call it, we call it a pre-seed round, and because it is in terms of our development phase, and we had a working MVP, but if I default to something else, I call it a mentor round, which is important to me because I feel like a friends and family round means, I called up, family members that I don't have, and just said, hey, I need money, and no questions asked, a check is given, and a bunch of checks are collected in that way. And I might be wrong. I'm sure a lot of folks who raise friends and family go deep into like what they're building and blah, blah, blah. But it's more of you have to love me because of our relationship. A mentor doesn't have to love you.
Yeah.
They choose to stay in this relationship. And so the folks who wrote our $1 million check had known me for 20 years, knew what we were building, had seen the ups and downs of how we run, how I run, decision makings, handle tough conversations, the things that they say made it a no-brainer decision for them.
Yeah.
And I get to say, wow, I didn't know you saw that in me. And that goes to, I'm a crier now. That goes to the partnership and the starting on a line together. That is pretty cool. And I feel lucky about.
And I feel like that speaks to who you are and your background, like the career that you've had that allowed you to develop these relationships with these people. Does that sound like you could accept that, or is that too foreign of an idea? Is that too big a reach?
I will accept that because my therapist would make me accept that.
Yes.
So I will.
I'm going to shower you with accolades.
No way. Let's not get carried away. Let's not get carried away.
I think that there's this idea, like, there's, lots of conversations, but there's also this idea that many people have people in their world that are just like, believe in you.
Yeah.
And so something that I work on with people is like, the first thing you do if you're thinking about raising is get in touch with those people to talk to them and talk to them about what you're doing. Not necessarily, not ask for money, but like let them know what you're doing so that those people can maybe, if they want to, like open doors for you that could lead to revenue or partnerships. And if they know what you're doing, maybe they might become investors at some point. But it's not about asking for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about like letting people know what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think as I think about my future, which has always been a hard thing for me to imagine, the piece I think we can't lose sight of is the immense privilege that we even have those relationships. And not to take out the introvert extrovert thing, but we're in worlds where those folks exist.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that aren't in those worlds who are just as smart, if not smarter.
Yep.
And so one of the things that drives me, in addition to the responsibility that I feel for my team and my excitement about what's possible for what we've built, because holy cow, like we got lucky. and we worked hard, but we got lucky in this moment. And the version that we have now, we already see six versions ahead, and what's possible in terms of what could be done in terms of truly understanding what different audiences and people need to give them and connect what really matters for their life while making a good profit. Like it connects there too. But how can we, right, folks in your position, and then should I be lucky enough to get on the other side of an exit, to be able to continue to change the game for the folks who are even farther out of from Chad
Yeah.
than even I am, right? Because it's harder and harder, especially whether it becomes, certainly women, certainly queer folks, queer women of color, right, who didn't even have the chance to go to Stanford or apply. How can we change that? And then for me, then it becomes, where's the extra layer of folks who grew up in an incredibly violent or hard, truly traumatic place? Because the obstacles and the physicality of healing from that, and the obstacles, the internal battles, in addition to all of the external battles that everybody between Chad and me have, but then beyond that, there's a way that has to be able to bridge that, so those folks can have the support to understand that there's multiple battles that they're fighting. And I want to get on the other side to be able to be somehow a resource for those folks who are making it happen.
Yeah. But you're in the process of doing that right here.
Yeah.
Which I love. Like, that's the whole reason I do this.
Yeah. And then that truly becomes full circle for me, right? From where I started my career, from where I started my life.
Yeah.
That's where it all ties together, and then I'm done. I am complete at that point. And that means what's next is going to be a second round, likely a second round. And then already starting to have amazing, it's like I can't get over that this is happening, but early conversations of interest from very, very large entities who understand what we've built. And so, like, I talk about my life of being so freaking lucky of getting caught in tides who swept me along, right? And those weren't necessarily people or individual folks who saw me in my situation, but I got fortunate to be in tides, right? I got fortunate to play on one of the best club volleyball teams in the country, to where two of my teammates went on to be Olympians or the equivalent, and so therefore was able to get a college scholarship, and then was able to then tides and tides and tides. And I feel like I'm in this moment where the tide has brought me to this moment where an acquisition or a second round, a much larger round, is possible. And now I can start to envision the other side of that and what that could be to help, which brings me back full circle, which is pretty cool.
It's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels good. You can feel when the tide isn't with you.
Totally. Well,
and
I've
felt the tide against me quite a bit, and right now I'm in a period where the tide seems to be bringing me along, which is lovely.
Yeah. It made me think, like, recognizing the tide isn't against you sometimes is hard. Is against you is hard to. It's hard to realize that. But isn't that interesting? Like, when you're caught up in a riptide, the answer is to give in to it.
Yes.
Which is also what we've been saying all along here today, of like, if you just stop fighting it.
Yeah.
One, recognize you're in it, recognize this doesn't work for you, and quit fighting it, and it'll get you out.
Yeah.
And that's listening to yourself.
Yeah.
But how many of us, especially as women or in certain environments, have been taught not to listen to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so how do we fix that? How do you fix that?
I'm not sure. And I mean, you combine that with the fact that most founders are tenacious, like incredibly tenacious, and won't give up. Doesn't always help us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in the perfect position to help fix it. And then I'm going to get there one day.
I think you give me too much power, but I'm working at it. Do you have any advice for founders who are behind you?
Oh, I don't feel like anyone's behind me. I feel like we're all equal. Um,
Do you want a tissue?
no, no, no. I think whatever it is you think you're failing at,
Mhm.
we're all failing at that too, or the equivalent.
Mhm.
And so the shame of staying quiet is
Yeah.
is what keeps, again, if we're predisposed as, again, whatever it might, any marginalized group from Chad or society, if we're predetermined to be told or believe that we're not good enough or wrong or bad, um, then we're not going to talk about it, right? And so the more you can talk about it, whatever it is, because but none of us are good at all of it, right? And I'm not even good at the things that you're supposed to be good at, right? To be in this position, I'm great at a lot of other things. I understand that, and I have a great team. But the more you talk, and you're like, oh wow, you have this is what you've done to financially make your company survive. That means that you might have some debt that isn't the ideal type of debt. That's okay, because here are 20 other people who have it worse, right? Or, you don't feel like you're good at accounting, or good at legal, or good at all the things that, like, there's support for. So what's my advice to folks who are also founders is be sure you have some sort of a founders group that are in the equivalent positions of you.
Yeah.
I co-created with somebody else a founders group that we meet monthly, and we have no official guide, except we are all in various versions of the same. And I can tell you that the conversation tends to be, it's all women, about supporting and cheering each other on around business development, because none of us feel like we're good at it or want to do it. And how do we make that feel different, and release ourselves to the riptide? And how the highs and lows, and being able to witness the highs and lows for each other, and be able to say, hey, remember 9 months ago, you thought it was over, and now, and it wasn't. And so now you think it's over again today, it's not. And being able to have that ability, because even the most well-meaning friends, or folks who have a more of a different type of job, y- you you can't understand. And to have that support and have that true honesty, back to telling the truth, like, tell the truth, always tell the truth. Somehow good things happen.
Yeah, no, it's super important. And this comes up sometimes as well. Like, how many times have people said to me, to you, to any founder, oh, you're still doing that? Why don't you just go get a job?
Oh,
Why don't you just go get a job?
I can't not do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having a founders group really helps with that, because I don't think usually your founders group is not going to say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. True.
Yeah. The founder in me sees the founder in you. That's wonderful.
The irrationality of all of us doing this. Yes.
The risk tolerance that we have.
Ooh. Is it tolerance? Well, this is a whole other podcast. What about our miswiring allows this to be considered tolerance, when it's probably just disassociation that we learned early? But hey, isn't it great that there's a win and a positive use for it? I will take it.
My hairdresser recently said that she thinks everyone in New York is trauma bonded. So maybe that's what founders see in each other.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, about being the change, like, and the conversations that need to be talked about. We're literally going to be launching a podcast about this, because when the camera's off, almost every founder I've spoken to is like, oh, and by the way, my kid's not going to the college she wants to because I looted her 529 plan. And I'm like, oh, same girl, same, right? Or, I really thought it was over at this point. Or, I became a mom and I'm a founder and I like working more than I like, that stuff. So it's like the really important stuff that we have shame about, or we don't want to talk about publicly. We're working here to try to make that more public.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's because this is really deep stuff that society is going to tell you isn't okay.
Yeah. Well, and also coming back to what the ecosystem of this investment world wants is, it's all about the bravado.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we see people in jail now because they got caught in the bravado, and the need to say not only just the good, but the future good. And
Yeah.
so that's, I think, when I stepped into those rooms, and will continue to stay in those rooms because I've found more and more of my people and the great heart that is in this investment world. But if we're looking at the macro side, it's the expectation that you're only going to be, up and to the right, and that's all you're talking about, and
Yeah.
and that's never the truth.
Yeah.
It's never the truth, and so we're building a foundation on lies, and then we're wondering why X% of things end up failing that we always hear the stats on. And I guess my question is, what if we built it on the truth? Stuck with the truth all along,
Yeah.
had honest conversations with our investors who were on our same team wearing the same jersey. And then I think the returns are going to be greater.
Yeah.
The financial returns and all of the things that come from that.
Probably
The
the
other types of
emotional
success.
fallout would be better,
Yeah.
lesser, I guess.
Yeah. And it might create more of a pathway for folks who see themselves. I volunteered at a group home for 40 teenage girls for a long time after I had left the industry and was working in the business world.
Yeah.
And there was a program where every month we brought in 3 successful, in quotes, because it's important to me for folks to see that success is a lot of different things,
Yeah.
not just the success that is monetary. And the women that we brought in had always had some version of something challenging, right? It was, you grew up with some version of alcoholism or domestic violence or sexual abuse or physical abuse or whatever it might be. And they had gone on to have some version of a career role that other people considered as successful, right? And when they would come in, they always wanted to tell their story of like, I'm the SVP of Intel, right? And these 40 young women who were all in the throes of just the worst of the worst would be like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, you don't understand. And we would work with the women to be able to tell their story backwards, right? And to say, I was abused, neglected, told I couldn't do it, blah, blah, blah. And the difference in what these 40 young women would go like, wait, you?
Yeah.
In that Chanel suit, you felt like me? I don't understand. And so it wasn't just about getting their attention. It was about changing their mindset for themselves. And then they would kind of take them through the story, and the last thing they would say is, and now I'm the SVP of Intel. And so these young girls could see a path out.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like what you're talking about, or what we're talking about here today, is if we could change it and have those honest conversations, the path out is more possible and more inclusive for a lot more folks, because a lot of folks who are, again, degrees of separation from the Chads, and again, hashtag not all Chads, not all Stanford folks, right? Not all, everything. But if we were all collectively a little bit more honest, then I think a lot more folks might go, oh, she was scared and did it anyways.
Yeah.
I'm scared, but I have an idea and maybe I could do it. And that's, should I get lucky enough to continue with a couple more tides, it would be the honor of my life to be able to help more folks be in this position that you can talk to in the future.
Yeah, because you're literally, when you show people the path from where they are to where they're going, you're breaking through the fourth wall for them. You're literally changing their lives
Yeah.
and opening, like, just breaking down barriers. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge, when people can't see options,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really tough place to be.
True.
Yeah. So what has changed since you closed your round?
Whew. I have an initial answer and I'm pausing to see what the other answers are. The first answer was more pressure, right?
Yeah, for sure.
More pressure, not from the folks writing the check, but from more people paying attention and more people being clear that they're paying attention. And and almost with that clamp of, um, but the second answer that came to me is possibility. And so it's both. It's the intensity of the pressure, which also matches the intensity of this moment for what we've built and how much is changing in the global agency world, what types of information is needed to understand humans in this radically changing time. And then the possibility of tomorrow, right? I didn't have the luxury to think about tomorrow a lot in my life. I didn't have the luxury when our first version of what's now called Hooks was being built to imagine what round 2 could be, because it just didn't seem possible. One, because I didn't know if it would work. 2, because, then it's going to cost, I know it's going to cost more money. And so what this has done is to take me a little bit farther on the tide and get me a little bit closer to what now I could see as like a possibility of round 2, and a possibility of this way that this thing that we've created that completely changes how you give your feelings and thoughts and ideas about the future, removes surveys and focus groups, which were wonderful for their time, but now makes it a modern digital experience like all of our lives have changed into, that's fun and interactive and provides the statistical rigor around the psychology of our irrational minds. Makes it possible. Like those next versions, which would have seemed impossibly hard when it was just a concept in my head, to now seems easy.
Yeah.
Because we've proven the hard part, and now it becomes just making it so much better. And that's exciting.
I know you've had a team for quite a while, but tell me how it feels to have your team be like super inspired and stoked to make what your vision is happen.
There's a moment I had when I was a collegiate athlete, and then at the time I thought I wanted to coach for the rest of my career, Division I volleyball. And so I was still a senior in college, and in the spring semester of your senior year, you don't have to train for the next season in volleyball. So you're kind of, you get to be a free in your second semester.
University student for once. Yeah.
And so I started coaching club volleyball, the traveling of the top players. And I was going to be the assistant, and then something went wrong, and they're like, "Stefanie, we need you to be the head coach." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like I don't know anything that I'm doing. And the very first day that I came to practice, I remember my team, there's a bunch of 16-year-olds, they were just standing around. I could picture this clear as day. And I had been an athlete for almost my entire life. I've been on the other side of this. And all of them were standing there at the beginning of practice looking at me. And in my head, I go, "What are you looking at? Like, why are you looking at me?" And then I was like, "Oh, like they need me to tell them what to do. That's so weird." And so I said, "Run." And they all turned around and ran. And I was like, "That's weird." And like, I think people like really enjoy that type of power, right? I remember I've known some professor folks who are like, "Oh, I like the dynamic of the power." I'm like, I didn't enjoy the dynamic of the power. I didn't enjoy the dynamic when I said run, and I was like, "That's weird." And I think I think about the same thing where like when I hear our dev teams, who are incredible, talking to each other now, right? Because we're pretty far in our development, about a super nuanced intricacy of one function of this thing that was just an angst in my mind for 5 years before I said it to who's now my CTO over drinks, right? And we started to map it out and explain and blah, blah, blah. And now to hear these other two folks who I didn't even know existed in the world at that day, to be like, "Well, this is how I think because this is important." And they're talking about how important this was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like how... it's weird. It's not cool. It's not like, it's just like, it translates to me as more pressure, but also like how neat, even though we're paying for services, it's so special to me that they care. I don't know. There's nothing, it's like, it's something I hope I don't ever get comfortable with, because it's a gift.
Yeah, it's very cool. I think it must be satisfying when you're telling people what your vision is and then to have them come back with something that's similar.
Mm.
Probably not all the way there, but similar, right? And as you said, like not knowing whether something was possible and then learning it was
Yeah.
from your brain, like
Yeah.
that's incredible. Very cool. So how do you stay mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy during this time?
Um, Arguably, I've slipped on some of those at different phases, especially this summer. Um, there's always new rounds of growth, right? And um, it's a commitment, like it's a decision, and I think that's a lucky thing about being older, and one of the beautiful gifts of how I grew up and having to build my own foundation is I have the time of the decades of getting it wrong and not taking care of physical, mental, spiritual health and learning from that. And so, um, despite there being new rounds of learning always, of which I'm coming out of one recently, the the knowledge of how crucial it is embedded in me. And so, you know, have aspects of both spiritual, mental, and physical kind of built into my daily life in a way that is medicine for me and that I know is necessary.
Do you find that um do you find that the physical part of that is easier than the emotional or mental? Just because of your background as an athlete. Like I think about this and I was never, I mean, I walked on for soccer for a week and I was like, twice a day, no thanks. Go have a normal college experience.
Good for you.
But I would have been a bench warmer. Like I was not
Yeah.
recruited, et cetera. But the discipline that I had in my life regarding physical activity is something that grounds me
Interesting.
and is medicine to me.
Okay.
Like I feel so much better
Yeah.
when I've done exercise,
Yeah.
when I have that in my life. So in my limited mind, I'm like, oh, well, all athletes must be like that. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. It's so fascinating to hear you talk about that. I think for me, the as I've gotten older, I think the slowing down and quieting has gotten to be the harder challenge
Oh.
and therefore the reward. And that's an interesting shift to see happen. I think there was a lot ingrained in me of as it related to physicality of um, pretty extreme shoulds, right?
Yeah.
Pretty extreme not good enoughs, pretty extreme um, messages and that I've had to unlearn. And so it's almost like this radical shift to listening to my body and not listening to the shoulds. I'm oh you never even say you're there, but like I'm aware of in a different way now. And what's harder and more fulfilling in that calming place now is the softer side.
Yeah.
And so just the other day I was like, I never want to have a timer on me again. Like, I never want to think I have to work out for X period of time, even if that X period is 20 minutes.
Yeah.
What if I just listen to my body and let it tell me if how I might feel like it needs to work out or move today or not move or meditate in a different way than typical or do something else or lean into, I do a lot of yin yoga, which I call assisted napping. And it's actually, if done quote unquote by the rules, which of course I don't do it that way. It's harder on me mentally
Yeah.
to do it because it is so intense in a different way. And so I think about probably the biggest challenge for me if I was going to take on, or when I come back to taking on, would be Tai Chi.
Yeah.
Which it is such, I had this beautiful year where I had an instructor and the amount of physicality in that. And one of the things I loved is I remember when he was asking me or what type of Tai Chi do you want? I was like, I don't know. He's like, do you want calm and peaceful, or do you want the um what's it called? Like the weaponry of it, the martial arts, the
Oh,
martial arts of it.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's like it's what? I want that. Oh, yeah, well, I guess I want the martial arts. And so what I learned, which was so beautiful, is like with every like I would see folks in Prospect Park or wherever, and it just looks so calm. They look so calm. And they just were like, I want that zen that I am projecting onto them. And when I learned that with every move in Tai Chi, it literally is akin to a fight move. So basically, he would be explaining the terms and the history, and then be like, and now she's gouging him by the eyeballs, hooking her fingers under, flipping him on his back, and then dragging him slowly. And I was like, and so every move is a like destruction move. And I'm like, maybe actually that's the beauty. Like maybe that's how, if we can all balance like that in this case what looks like beautiful calmness with the angst of living and the frustration that I'm sure every person has for whatever reason, and accept it, we'll all be
That's incredible. It gives me a whole new,
more honest and connected.
yeah, I guess, context for
it's like,
seeing all the people in the parks doing
this
this
is the
amazing.
cut to the neck.
Yes.
This is the push off of the other person who's attacking you. This is like a knife. It's just so. If I can get physically, spiritually, and mentally strong, I then might be able to do Tai Chi.
Nice.
It's a goal. I'll get there. Yeah.
Goals. Any last words you want to leave us with?
No.
I think that was pretty strong.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I really appreciate you coming on here, because, even in our conversation, you're like, how can I help? Well, that's what we're doing here, right? Like you coming on here and talking about your journey and how you had to do it in alignment with who you are is showing people how they can do this as well. And I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Helena Fogarty, and this was Inside the Round.